She clung to my leg as if letting go meant death. A German Shepherd puppy trembling abandoned on the streets of Los Angeles. It was just past noon, heat rising off the sidewalk, people walking past with coffee cups and shopping bags, not even slowing down. But she didn't see them. She saw only me. I felt her tiny paws grip my calf, her nails scratching through my jeans as if she was trying to hold on to the only thing that hadn't hurt her. Her ribs pressed through her skin. Her tail was tucked so tight it barely moved. And her eyes, God, those eyes. They weren't just scared, they were shattered. I froze. I had just stepped out of the deli on La Brea and Sunset. Sandwich in one hand, phone in the other, not expecting my entire life to change. I looked down and there she was. No leash, no collar, no tag. Just a small, dirt-covered puppy whose entire world now depended on me not walking away. A couple behind me scoffed. "What is that thing doing out here?" She flinched. She didn't let go. Her body was so light, I thought she might break if I touched her wrong. I bent down and she pressed her head into my shin like she was trying to disappear into me. She smelled of trash and panic. Her breathing was rapid, like she had been running for miles. And then she made a sound. A low, aching cry that didn't come from her throat. It came from somewhere deeper. I'd heard that sound once before years ago when I watched my own German Shepherd take his last breath at the vet. I dropped to my knees. She collapsed instantly into my arms. Her legs gave out like her body had only been running on hope. I looked around searching for someone, anyone who might have known where she came from. But no one even turned their head. So I sat there on the hot pavement, holding this broken German Shepherd puppy in the middle of the street, with cars rushing past and the smell of exhaust in the air. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't leave her. But I had no idea what to do next. She didn't move the entire time I carried her. Her body hung against my chest like a rag soaked in heat and fear. I could feel her ribs shift with every breath, each one shallow, uneven. She weighed almost nothing, like hunger had already hollowed her out. People walked by. Some glanced. No one stopped. One man muttered, "Filthy stray," under his breath as he passed. I pushed open the passenger door of my truck, laid her down on an old towel, and reached for a half-empty water bottle in the console. I poured some into my hand and brought it to her lips. For a second, she didn't react. Then suddenly, like a match had been lit inside her, she lapped at the water with a wild, frantic urgency. She coughed, splashed it everywhere, pawed weakly at my hand as if to say, "Don't take it away." I whispered, "Easy, girl. You're safe now." Her paw jerked. Her back legs twitched. And then nothing. Her whole body went limp. My chest tightened. I touched her side, still breathing, but barely. Panic clawed at my throat. I slammed the door and got behind the wheel, started the engine with one hand, the other resting on her tiny frame, to feel the rise and fall. "Just hold on," I said. "Please, my name is Mark. I work construction. I'm not a vet, not a rescuer, not anybody special. Just a guy who used to have a German Shepherd named Max. 15 years of loyalty, then gone in a blink. I swore I'd never go through that pain again. But this little one didn't care about my promises. She had already chosen me." I turned off Sunset and hit the gas, heading toward the nearest animal clinic I knew. The street shimmered with heat. Cars honked. Then I looked over and saw her eyes flutter open. She tried to lift her head, failed, and then she made a sound so soft I almost missed it. It was the faintest whimper, like a child crying in a nightmare. I pulled into the vet clinic's parking lot like I was skidding into an emergency room. Gravel kicked up. I didn't even turn the engine off. I scooped her up, towel and all, and rushed through the glass doors. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Is she injured?" She's barely breathing," I said. "German Shepherd puppy, found her on Sunset, please." Before I could finish, a tech appeared from behind the door and motioned me through. I followed, heart hammering, cradling her like something sacred and fragile. They took her from my arms. She whimpered once, as if afraid I was leaving. I reached out, fingers grazing her paw, before the door swung shut between us. I stood in the hallway alone. My hands were shaking. My shirt was damp from where her body had rested. A minute passed, then 5, 10. I sat down in one of those cold plastic chairs and stared at the wall. Max's face flashed in my mind. His last night. The way he looked at me with trust, even as I said goodbye. I thought I'd buried all of that grief, but this little one had ripped the scab right off, and the truth hit me like a punch to the gut. I was terrified. Not of losing her, of needing her, of letting my heart open again. A vet came out. She's stable for now, she said. Severely dehydrated. Her blood sugar's dangerously low. We've started fluids. She's responding. I felt my knees go weak. Relief and guilt flooded me all at once. Can I see her? I asked. She nodded. I walked into the back room, and there she was, curled under a warming lamp, a tiny IV taped to her paw, a small towel wrapped around her like a blanket. She saw me. Somehow, despite everything, she lifted her head just a little. Her eyes met mine and they didn't blink. I took a step forward, knelt down beside the table, and whispered, "You're safe, I promise." And then she wagged her tail, weak, barely noticeable, but it moved. She remembered me, and somehow she still trusted me. That little wag shattered me. I didn't even realize I was crying until a tear hit the metal edge of the table. She was still shaking, still wrapped in fear and exhaustion. But she had chosen to move for me. That tail, the tiniest flicker of hope, cut through all the noise in my head. I reached out, gently placed my hand beside her face. Her nose twitched. She nudged my palm with the tip of her snout. No strength left in her body, but somehow she still wanted contact. The vet came in, a woman in her 50s with steady hands and tired eyes. "We'll keep her overnight. She needs monitoring, blood work, warmth, food when she can handle it." "But she's a fighter." I nodded. "What's her chance?" She hesitated. Honestly, she shouldn't have made it this far. I looked down at her again. Her eyes were still on me, still locked in, like I was the only thing holding her here. "She didn't make it this far alone," I said. The vet gave a soft smile. "You can sit with her a bit." They moved her to a quieter room. Less equipment, no buzz of machines, just her, curled on a heated pad, the IV still taped to her leg. I pulled a chair beside her and sat silently, watching her chest rise and fall in tiny, uneven motions. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was supposed to be on a job site downtown, laying drywall, not holding vigil for a puppy I'd met an hour ago. But I didn't move. At some point, she dozed off. Her breathing steadied. Her legs twitched. Little sleep movements like she was chasing something in a dream. I found myself hoping she was dreaming of safety, of running somewhere soft, somewhere kind. I looked around the room. White walls, shelves of bandages, faint smell of antiseptic. Then I looked back at her. I whispered, "You don't have a name, do you?" She didn't stir. Not yet, but I had already started imagining the day she would. She woke up crying. It was early morning, barely light outside. I had dozed off in the chair, my neck aching and legs numb when I heard it. Soft at first, then sharper like a whimper turning into a wail. She was twisting on the pad, her legs kicking, mouth open in a silent yelp. Her whole body trembled like she was trapped in something I couldn't see. I moved fast, crouched beside her. Hey, you're okay," I whispered, brushing a hand down her back. "You're safe." Her eyes shot open, wild, confused. Then she saw me, and just like that, her body stilled. She tucked herself back into a tight coil, head resting against the towel, breathing fast and shallow. That was when I noticed she still hadn't eaten, not a single bite. The food the clinic had left sat untouched in a little bowl beside her. I asked the tech about it when they came in. She shrugged. Sometimes trauma just shuts them down, or they're too used to fighting for scraps to trust anything clean. I stared at the untouched kibble. I couldn't explain it, but something about that bowl broke me more than the IV or the blood work. She was too afraid to eat, too unsure this was real. They ran more tests, hooked her up to fluids again. I signed a paper that I didn't really read, just nodded and scribbled where they told me. Then came the moment I'd been avoiding. "She can't stay here long term," the vet said. "We're not a shelter. If you're not able to take her, we'll have to contact animal control or try to place her with rescue." No guarantees. I looked down at her. She was curled up again, one paw twitching. Still no name. Still no home. The idea of her going back into the system of being shuffled between loud cages, cold floors, strange hands, something inside me twisted. But I told them, I need time, just a day or two. They agreed, gave me instructions, meds, small cans of food I wasn't sure she'd ever touch, and then they handed her back to me. As soon as she felt my arms again, she relaxed. Her tiny head fell against my chest like it belonged there. The receptionist looked at me as I left. You sure she's just a stray? She asked. That dog clings to you like she's been yours forever. I didn't answer because deep down I already knew she wasn't just a stray. She was someone the world had given up on, and now she was mine to protect. I carried her out of the clinic like glass, fragile, weightless, breakable in every way. She didn't make a sound, just pressed her head to my chest like she didn't believe the nightmare was over. Traffic was building up on Melrose as we pulled away. I glanced at her every few seconds, terrified she'd stop breathing. The world outside moved on like nothing happened. People laughed on patios. Joggers ran with earbuds in. But in my truck was a life barely holding on, ignored, discarded, nearly erased. At a red light, a woman crossed the street in front of us. She looked directly at the towel in my passenger seat. Her nose wrinkled. She mouthed, "Ooh!" and kept walking. I didn't even blink because I'd already seen worse. I'd seen how many people passed her that day, stepping over her like she was trash. I saw a guy kick a crumpled soda can that landed inches from her and not even look back. She had cried for help and the world turned the volume down. Not anymore. I turned into a PetSmart just off La Cienega. My hands still smelled like the antiseptic from the clinic. My shirt was stained. I didn't care. Inside, the AC hit like a wave. Bright lights, rows of treats, leashes, toys. It felt like another planet. An employee walked over. Teenage kid, purple hair, big smile. Need help finding something? I looked down at the puppy in my arms. She was barely peeking out from the folds of the towel. She won't eat, I said. She was starving, but she's too scared. The smile faded. His face softened. Okay, he said. Let's try puppy formula. Some soft shoes, warm blanket, maybe. He walked me through every aisle like it mattered, like she mattered. I'll never forget that. I filled the cart, wet food, baby bottles, recovery milk, a small bed she might actually sink into. On the way to checkout, we passed a rack of collars. One of them stopped me. It was a soft tan leather with a tag shaped like a bone. I picked it up, turned it over. Blank. She didn't have a name. Not yet. But when I got back to the truck and she opened her eyes just for a second, something clicked. A name formed in my mind so clearly, it felt like she whispered it to me. Hope. I looked at her and said it out loud. Hope. She blinked once. Then she tucked her nose deeper into the towel and finally, let sleep take her. I carried her into my apartment like I was holding fire and glass at the same time. The air inside was cooler than the heat outside, but she still trembled against my chest. I laid her gently on the floor in the corner of the living room, where the afternoon sun hit just right. I unwrapped the towel, placed the new blanket beneath her, and sat beside her in silence. She didn't lift her head, didn't move, just blinked slow and tired like she wasn't sure if this was real. I opened one of the formula bottles, poured a little into the dish, then dipped my fingers in it and brought it to her lips. Nothing. So I tried again. Lower, slower, whispering, "It's okay. Hope it's okay." On the third try, her tongue flicked. Just a taste, then another. Then a trembling paw shifted forward and she licked again. Not hunger, trust. I sat with her for over an hour, letting her drink in tiny sips, watching every twitch in her face, every flicker in her eyes. She wouldn't eat the solid food yet, but this was something. Then I did what I hadn't done in years. I pulled out Max's old dog bed from the closet, still smelled faintly of him. I hesitated, but then I set it down beside her, placed the new blanket over it, and gently moved her in. She curled into a ball so tight it looked painful. That night I canceled everything. Work, dinner, calls. Nothing else mattered. I slept on the floor beside her, my arm draped lightly over the edge of the bed. Every time she whimpered, I reached out and let her feel my hand. And every time, she stilled. At 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound I couldn't place, a slow dragging across the hardwood. Hope had gotten up, wobbly, swaying, but she was walking. She made it 3 steps toward the kitchen before her legs gave out and she collapsed. I rushed over, heart in my throat. But when I lifted her, she licked my chin. It wasn't just a moment. It was her first decision. She had chosen to try. In the morning, I carried her outside for a bit of fresh air. She clung to me again, her paws tight around my arm like she thought I might disappear. The street was buzzing. Delivery trucks, kids on scooters, people walking dogs with shiny coats and sparkly harnesses. And not one of them looked at us. Not one person asked if she was okay. She had a bandage still wrapped around her leg. Her ribs were visible through her fur. Her eyes were dull, like someone had turned off the light inside. A woman passed by walking a golden retriever, glanced down and made a face. "You should really keep strays off the sidewalk," she said, without slowing down. My jaw locked. Stray like that word made her less than. I wanted to yell, to explain, to hold hope in the air and scream, "Look at her! Look at what someone did!" But no one would stop because it wasn't their pain. Back inside, I sat on the floor beside her again, watching her doze in Max's old bed. I'd washed the blanket twice already, but the smell of antiseptic and fear still clung to her fur. That's when the thought hit me. Maybe I shouldn't keep her. Maybe someone with experience could help her better. Maybe a rescue group, a foster family, a place where they know what to do with dogs like this. Because I didn't. I didn't know how to fix her. What if I made it worse? I grabbed my phone, searched for shelters. Some were full. Others had wait lists. One said they'd evaluate her temperament to determine if she was adoptable. Evaluate her, a puppy, like she was a defective product that might not pass inspection. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I looked at her, and she was watching me. Quiet, still, but her eyes were open. She had felt the shift in energy. She knew. In that moment, I felt something I didn't expect. Shame. She had survived the unthinkable. She had crawled into my arms. She had fought to drink water from my hand, and I was thinking of letting her go. I turned off my phone, and I said it out loud so there was no taking it back. "You're not going anywhere." Her eyes didn't close for a while, but eventually they did. And for the first time, she didn't flinch in her sleep. The next few days blurred together, medicine, feedings, tiny victories measured in steps and sips. Every time Hope stood on her own, it felt like a miracle. But healing wasn't a straight line. Some mornings, she'd lift her head and try to wag her tail. Other times, she'd shake for hours, startled by sounds no one else could hear. She had nightmares. Twice I found her curled in the farthest corner of the room, shivering, having dragged herself there in the middle of the night. Once she had peed herself in fear. She was too ashamed to look at me. I cleaned the floor in silence, sat beside her, let her come back to me on her terms. The damage wasn't just physical, it never is. Then came the neighbor. I was carrying Hope back inside after a short walk when I heard it, his voice sharp and judgmental. "That the same mutt you dragged home?" he asked, standing by his mailbox. "Place smells like a damn shelter lately." I didn't answer, just kept walking. "She's going to bite someone, man. Dogs like that don't get better. They break." I stopped, not because I was angry, because Hope had hurt him too. She buried her head under my arm the way she always did when something felt too loud or too much. I turned around, looked him dead in the eye and said, "Dogs don't break. People do." He scoffed, waved me off, went back inside, but the damage was done. For hours I sat with her, wondering if he was right. What if she didn't recover? What if all I was doing was delaying the inevitable? But then something changed. That night when I sat on the couch, Hope limped over on her own and tried clumsily, shakily to climb up beside me. I helped her up. She curled beside my leg, rested her head on my thigh, and for the first time since the day she collapsed into my arms, she sighed. Not a cry, not a whimper, just a soft, quiet breath, a sound that said, I'm home. The 10th day was the turning point. It started with sunlight on her fur, golden, warm, like the universe itself was rooting for her. She stood up before I reached her. Wobbly, sure, but on her own. Her tail gave one tiny hopeful wag. Then came the sound. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it, scratching at the door. Hope trying to follow me. I opened it and she beamed. Not with her face, her body, her eyes, her very presence. She limped in, sat at my feet and just looked up like, where you go, I go. She followed me into the kitchen, waited while I poured coffee, nudged my ankle like she wanted something more than food. Connection. I cooked eggs, scrambled soft the way she could swallow. She ate a few bites, then laid down beside my feet, head on her paws, peaceful. I snapped a photo. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself this was real. Then mid-morning, I decided she was ready. Not for the park, not for a crowd, just life outside the trauma. We drove to Griffith Park. I carried her down the slope in my arms, found a quiet patch of grass under a tree, sat with her on a blanket, and let the sun do its thing. She sniffed the air, watched a butterfly drift past, her ears perked up at a distant bark, and then slowly she stood. Not long, just a few seconds, but she didn't fall. I watched, stunned, as she took one step, then another. She paused, looked back at me, eyes wide, unsure. I held my breath. She stepped again. Her back leg buckled a little, but she caught herself. And then she ran 3 feet, maybe 4. But it was a run. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. She turned, confused by my silence, as if to say, "Did you see me?" I nodded, eyes full. She came back and collapsed in my lap, exhausted, proud, alive. That night, back home, she curled into my side on the couch. I stroked behind her ears as she drifted off. And for the first time since I found her, I let myself cry. Not because I was scared, but because I knew she had chosen to live. Hope's world began to open. Her steps turned into strolls, her silence into soft, playful growls, and her eyes, those hollow, haunted eyes, began to shine. Every day brought something new. She chased her first ball. It rolled under the couch, and she stared at it like it had betrayed her. I laughed so hard she barked in confusion, then wagged her tail like she'd just invented joy. She learned her name not because I taught it to her, but because I spoke it constantly, like a promise. Hope when she woke up, hope when she ate, hope when she curled beside me and let out that tiny sigh of safety. One afternoon, she ran into the hallway and barked at the mailman. Not a scared bark, a protector's bark. I had never been so proud to hear that sound. My apartment was filled with toys, chewed corners on everything, fur on every shirt I owned, but I didn't care. I'd take the mess 1,000 times over if it meant she stayed beside me. Sometimes I'd catch her sleeping on her back, paws in the air, belly exposed, complete trust. That's how you know a dog feels safe. The nightmares stopped, the flinching too. But what stayed with me most was how she started greeting strangers, cautiously, gently, but willingly, as if she believed, maybe, just maybe, not all people are cruel. We went to PetSmart again, this time not for survival supplies, but for a harness with her name embroidered in gold. The cashier leaned over the counter and said, "She's beautiful. What's her story?" I looked at Hope. She was sitting proud, ears perked, tail sweeping the floor in slow, steady arcs. I smiled and said, she wrote her own. Because she had. From collapsed and broken on the street to this little German shepherd puppy had rebuilt her life. And somewhere along the way, she rebuilt mine too. She was never just a stray. She was a survivor, a German shepherd puppy who refused to give up even when the world gave up on her first. Hope's journey broke me open in ways I never expected. She taught me that healing isn't always clean or quick, but it is possible. That trust, once shattered, can grow back stronger. That love doesn't begin when everything's perfect. It begins when you show up, even when it's messy. I still remember the way she clung to my leg that first day, like letting go meant death. And now she runs ahead of me at the park, turns back just to make sure I'm still there. Like she's saying, "Come on, Dad, we made it." This little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important nonprofit rescue groups really are. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's pet care. So if you're watching this and you feel something, share it. Because every time this story is seen, another abandoned animal might get a second chance. Every view, every comment, every repost, it matters. Let people know what a rescued German Shepherd puppy can become with just one person willing to say, "Not today, not this one." Don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thank you all.